welcome to the Ask the Lawyer series with Kamah Thoronka, with the Voice of Africa TV, where we're going to attempt to answer all of your questions that you had sent to the newspaper. You can see the newspaper in the DMV and worldwide, especially in Ghana and the United States. You can also follow the pages on all social media platforms. And again, welcome. I hope you will learn something from this interview, or at least from this question and answer. And these are questions that were posted at the newspaper. So welcome. For those of you who watched the first series, Marriage Green Card, it's not really a name of anything, but people can obtain a green card through their marriage. If you're married to a United States citizen, you can very much obtain your permanent resident status through that marriage. How long after your marriage can you apply? There's typically no there are no time frames that the law requires. You can get married today and actually file for your permanent residency tomorrow. You can prepare the paperwork and file it tomorrow. So there's no time frame. What I do advise, though, is you need time to be able to accumulate some of the documents that are required to show that you are cohabiting and sharing your life together, because that's one of the elements. Do you have lease agreements together? Do you have pictures together? Do you have bills together and things like that? And that are evidence of your bona fide marriage. Sometimes it takes a while for people to accumulate those things. Otherwise, there are no time frames on it. Fiance visas typically are filing for their fiancés outside of the country, because it's called the they file that visa when you're engaged to the person. Now it's kind of a little bit tricky, because some people meet people or they've never met the person and they say, oh yeah, I'm engaged to them. The law is very tricky and is very stern on the fiance visas, where they want you to be able to show that you have been interacting with that person. Typically, have you gone to the person's country? Typically, that you have you guys had an engagement? In most of our African countries, there are always maybe a traditional kind of engagement that is being held. It's always good to have attended that. You want to be able to show that you have traveled back to the person. You want to be able to show your conversations. A lot of the times now, because of social media and things like that, it's easy to prove, especially when the person is your legitimate fiance. And in that, you don't have to prove that you've been living with the person, as opposed to the marriage visa, where the adjustment of status through marriage, where you have to show cohabitation and sharing of life together. So you got to bring pictures, you got to bring lease agreements, you got to bring bank statements, you got to bring insurances. Here's another thing on the fiance visa. Because you're just a fiance, when the person comes to the United States and that visa has been approved, they must get married then within 3 months. Otherwise, that visa becomes void. Pushing this further, though, you may still file your fiance visa, your adjustment through a marriage, but not through a new marriage. You can still file it on your fiance visa that was previously approved, even though you didn't get married within that 3 months. If you got married in 3 months, but you didn't file your petition, and you guys got a divorce, you can still file, but it has to be through that original visa. So, for example, you came here, you didn't get married to the person, y'all broke up, and then you got married to another person. That new marriage cannot file for you because you're not eligible through the new marriage. But you can still go back through the previous visa that you have. It's a complex area, but just remember, when you get into fiance, you come here as a fiance, in 3 months you must get married, or else you're just causing yourself a whole lot of trouble. The typical time frame that the law says is 6 months. Now, we know that has not been the case. 6 months, I push 9 months on an average now. However, with COVID and other things that's happening with immigration, with the whole system, there are people waiting for a year. Now, again, if there are issues, maybe you had previously filed an adjustment of status application, or anybody who usually have kind of contact with immigration when you file. It takes them a while to do the extended review. So sometimes you have cases that's pending there for years or perhaps months because they're reviewing your previous applications. But the standard time is typically between 6 to 9 months that they process those visas. The K1 is just the name for the fiancé visa. A lot of money. Well, most people think that they can file this on their own. The forms are changing. Fees are changing. The forms are very difficult now. They are including a lot more information. So you want to hire a lawyer. And of course, you got to hire me, of course. Thoronka Law Offices. But the average fees now for the government, it's $1,760. And that is to file your entire petition based on your I-130s and your 485s, those forms combined. Most attorney fees are averaging around $4,000 now. So I think the whole budget for filing, if you were married, you're looking around $6,000, including costs and fees, or potentially $7,000. Now, some places you're looking at $7,000, depending on the jurisdiction. Who knows? They have what they call the poverty guidelines. I think, and I don't know everything from 1 to like 10 members of your family, but the poverty guidelines helps us to be able to determine how many people can the income support. I think about 2 people, it's like 21,000 or 20,000 or something like that. And the list and the number goes up as the number of people. So they're going with the dependent of the petitioner. So if I'm filing for you, then, and I don't have any dependents, which means I don't have any kids, then they're looking at my income for 2 people, me and you. If I had a child or 2 children, then the dependent becomes 3 or 4. And the more people, the higher you got to make. But the money is not that high. They go by the poverty guidelines. Well, you better be in a real marriage. I mean, like, I don't even know. You proof. The proof is coming from what they call intent. There is a logical process for people who are regularly getting married. You do an engagement, you're meeting the families and things like that. If you enter into marriage, that will subsequently be that you're going to be filing. Then documents that they're looking for, if you guys live together, do you have a lease agreement that have both of your names on it? Pictures before and after the marriage, pictures during the marriage. Do you have bills? Sometimes it's hard though, because the beneficiary, which is the alien, the person that they're filing for, don't have Social Security yet, and so they can't put their names on some of the bills or the bank account statement and stuff like that, which is quite is not unusual. But you got to show documents and bills and cell phone records with both of your names on the bank accounts. Those are easy things to kind of have. And if you don't have anything at all, you definitely want to have affidavits from families. Your family, write an affidavit. His family, write affidavits to show that the marriage is legitimate. This is a legitimate marriage. And they got to get detailed in the affidavit. Maybe we have dinner with this couple. Maybe I visit them and I see them regularly. We go to the grocery store. Things like that to show that my affidavit is telling the truth about your marriage. But they look at a lot of secondary things as well, if you don't have some of the primary things. The number one big thing is also taxes. Most people who file and you're within tax season, you may file your taxes together to be able to show. Well, first of all, when you first get married and you anticipate that your spouse will be filing for you, please, people, start getting to know your spouse. I know we're living in a world where we're sort of going back and forth and back. You go to work and everybody's passing like a ship in the middle of the night. Get to know your spouse. Get to know your spouse's family. Get to know where your spouse was born. Get to know his favorite color. Get to know colognes. Get to know the favorite foods. How the bills are paid. Because when you go, the idea is to try to find out if you are cohabiting. And the only way that they can ask you that is probably ask you questions like, what is the color of the curtains in your bath, in your room? I remember taking a couple for an interview, and I mean, it's a legitimate marriage. They live together. But they asked the guy, do they have plants in the house? He said, yes. And the woman said, no. They split them up. And he was thinking, no, they said, do we have flowers in the house? She said, no. He said, yes. He's thinking plants are flowers. Men don't have clue with those things. Everything is flowers to him. So now they said, well, inconsistent statement because she's saying one thing. They asked him for the refrigerator. He said the refrigerator is gray because men don't know colors. I'm just sorry, men. It's just what I've experienced. He said gray. She said stainless steel. So, and all those little things immigration will say, you're not consistent with your answers. So in preparation, I tell my clients, the minute you get married, start getting to know. Make it purposeful. And also, you want to start collecting documents and saving them, because if that marriage does not work out, and perhaps the person say, I don't want to move forward with the filing anymore, you may be in the position, especially if it has some elements of abuse to it, that you can file for yourself based on that marriage, but you don't need that person anymore. That's my little secret. And you need to move forward with the filing, but you need documents like, for example, their evidence of their citizenship, like either their passport or their naturalization certificate and things like that. You need a copy of their birth certificate. You need the marriage certificate. So when you get into this process, and yet love is there and everything, but make sure you keep your records in case it goes south and you need to proceed on your own. But to prove your marriage is legitimate is just, even when you go for the interview, that's a really tricky thing. I've taken people for interview and they're so nervous that they don't even relate to each other. And it raises also a concern because immigration, what they do is they train their officers from body language they're looking at to see whether or not you guys are even interconnecting with each other, to how you respond to questions. So you got to watch that. So that's why when you come to Thoronka Law offices and we prepare your application, submit it and everything, before you go for your interview, we bring you in to prepare the both of you. We ask you both questions, jog your memories with things, so that when you go, you know pretty much everything about each other. If you get a visitor visa or if your spouse files for you to come, otherwise, I don't control that part. I don't know. You either get a visitor visa to come visit your spouse, or your spouse may file a petition for you, and then you have to wait until that petition is approved, and then you can come to the U.S. Of course, that's the first place to go, people. Immigration checks social media. They stay on social media looking. Social media is going to tell a story. Social media is going to tell a story about that person's life. Social media is going to tell stories about their friends. Social media is going to tell a story if they're married or not. They might have made some reference to the marriage. So if you are filing your application and you trying to do something shady and you have not fixed your social media page, I remember my wife, a lawyer, as a matter of fact, she was from Ghana, filed an application with someone else and did a naming ceremony and invited some of her other colleagues' lawyers. And when they got there, they realized that the husband that she was filing on was not the husband because they were calling a different name. And they call immigration. So, and they posted all these things on social media. Like, social media can be extremely damaging. It can be very helpful because if your marriage also is legitimate, they go there, they see pictures of you guys, maybe for different things, different programs. It legitimizes. I remember there was a pastor from, I think Boston area, and we were filing for them. And they didn't have any documents really to show. I don't know why they didn't have any documents. But on their social media page, on his social media, it was a lot of pictures of him and his wife at different places, church programs and stuff. So that in and of itself was enough for them to grant it to them. although they didn't have documents to show they lived together. So social media can work as a benefit to most, and it can work as a an FBI hindrance to someone.